Our story begins in the vast and prosperous Federation Kingdom of the East, but a dark prophecy looms, showing a world torn asunder by a cataclysmic power descending from the heavens. This destruction, it is foretold, will be wrought by the hands of 5 godlike beings known as the Great Sins, and under their devastating might, the entire kingdom is destined to fall into ruin. In a desperate effort to prevent this catastrophic future, one man devises a perilous plan to avert the apocalypse. He has taken on the impossible task of becoming the patron to the very beings who are fated to cause it. However, he is quickly realizing that the burden of changing destiny is a far greater deal than he ever anticipated. The scene shifts to an opulent room where the clatter of fine cutlery echoes silently. Here we meet our protagonist, a former corporate slave who, after working himself to death, has possessed the body of a young noble in a fantasy world. His immediate confusion is palpable as he struggles with a simple book, a humbling reminder that he is a stranger in this new life. This confusion gives way to awe as he's presented with a feast beyond his wildest dreams. Having finished the magnificent meal, his new life of overwhelming luxury continues as a maid offers to prepare his bath. The shock of his new reality intensifies, finding himself being personally attended to by 2 servants in a grand tub. Leaning into the sheer indulgence, he allows himself a moment of pure bliss, savoring a life he never could have imagined. This peaceful moment is interrupted when a maid informs him of the imminent return of the young masters, a detail that leaves him perplexed. Her subsequent clarification reveals their names, Leo Antonio, and she questions his strange ignorance of his own family members. It is upon hearing the family name Palacio that a deep and ominous feeling of familiarity begins to chill him to the bone. In a sudden wave of panic, the terrible realization of his circumstances causes him to plunge his head beneath the water, startling the attendants. As bubbles escape his lips, a single horrifying question screams through his mind. He's trapped within the world of the game Psychedelia. His memory flashes back to the game's title screen, confirming the nightmarish truth of where he has been reborn. He vividly recalls his past life as a hardcore gamer, dedicating countless hours to conquering this very world. The game's lore rushes back to him, centered around the unstoppable antagonists known as the 5 Great Sins. He remembers their ominous crest, a symbol that heralds the inevitable downfall of the kingdom. And among the first to fall was the notoriously corrupt Palacio House. Led by 2 brothers known as the Kings of Prostitutes and Drugs, overwhelmed by this knowledge, he collapses in despair. Understanding he has been reborn into a house marked for death, his gamer instincts flare, showing him a mental subquest to investigate the Palacio family, confirming their deep-seated corruption. He even recalls his own thoughts as a player, recognizing the Palacio estate as a place only a fool would willingly enter. The final crushing piece of the puzzle locks into place. He is Alan Palacio, the disposable 3rd son, an extra villain fated to be the first casualty. Lying in his lavish bed, the full weight of his predetermined and very short future presses down upon him. He mourns his cruel fate, where a life of luxury is nothing but a 10-year countdown to his own execution. Tears of frustration stream down his face as he laments being reincarnated without any of the cheat codes or special powers protagonists are usually granted. But just as despair threatens to consume him, a flicker of an idea ignites within the darkness. A bold resolution forms in his mind. If he knows the cause of the world's destruction, then he simply has to remove it himself. For the sake of his own peaceful, noble life, he decides to reform the 5 Great Sins before they can ever awaken. He reasons that since they are currently just children, it might be possible to change their paths, even for someone like him who has 0 powers. 2 months later, his audacious plan is officially underway. Having rescued a group of orphans from a brutal human testing facility, to aid his mission, he has hired a loyal subordinate, a formidable man named Evan, to be his personal knight. From his desk, Alan commends his new knight on his skills, maintaining a calm and composed demeanor. His stoic expression, however, leaves Evan unable to tell if his master is being sincere. In an attempt to appear friendly, Alan forces a wide, unnatural smile that only serves to deeply unsettle his knight. He inwardly curses his new body's inability to form natural expressions, a stark contrast to the original Alan's emotional transparency. This is precisely why he hired Evan, a man whose loyalty was an unshakable constant in the treacherous world of the Psychedelia game. Evan, ever focused, directs the conversation to their recent mission, the rescue of a specific girl named Yusha. A shadow crosses the knight's face as he recalls the events, stating that the girl was far from ordinary. His memory returns to the dark prison where he found several captive children, and in the center, a white-haired girl held in chains. Evan recounts his confusion, having sensed a power in her so immense that her capture seemed impossible. Back in the present, the knight questions Alan's decision to leave such a person in a separate location, a point Alan readily concedes. Alan knows that from the outside, his choice to keep her at a distance might seem like simple neglect. He knows her true identity. Yusha Bludia, a non-human destined to become Wrath, the most destructive of the 5 Great Sins. With a confident smirk, he believes his plan is sound. By raising her in a peaceful environment, he can prevent her transformation and disarm a living time bomb. Faced with his knight's logical question, Alan quickly tries to formulate a plausible excuse. He pauses for a moment, letting the silence hang in the air as he considers his words carefully. Seeing his master's contemplative state, Evan mistakenly assumes there is a hidden meaning. Asking if it is not yet time, Alan immediately seizes upon the misunderstanding, confirming his knight's assumption and issuing orders to maintain secrecy and provide funds. He then produces a sealed envelope, instructing Evan to deliver this letter directly to Yusha. When questioned, he explains it's a message of reassurance, a gesture of goodwill after her traumatic ordeal. Trusting his master's judgment, Evan takes the letter and promises to see it delivered. Alan watches from his window as his knight departs. Carrying the crucial message alone with his thoughts, he harbors his own doubts about the plan's success but reaffirms that it is a risk he must take. His strategy is based on a key event from the game where an archbishop attempted to pacify an enraged Yusha with a holy spell. He recalls the incantation, a cryptic phrase meant to soothe her non-human nature. This event was the trigger for the game's main scenario, the story progression of the Sin of Wrath. In the original timeline, the spell failed spectacularly, causing her immense power to erupt violently. Corrupted by the failed spell, she transformed completely, her humanity lost to an unstoppable rage. The memory of the ensuing battle, a direct result of that failure, serves as a grim warning for Alan's own gamble. Back in his study, Alan stretches, feeling the immense pressure of his meddling with fate. He muses on the absurdity of his plan, yet holds on to the hope that a few carefully chosen words might influence the girl they call a monster. The way of thinking for these otherworldly beings is something he admits is incredibly hard to fathom. They are like lunatics. Miles away, Yusha stands in solitude, holding the letter that will decide her fate. Evan observes her from a distance, feeling a torrent of mana so unbelievable that it makes his skin crawl. As he approaches, he notes her strange, emotionless demeanor, a terrifying stillness that is amplified by the dark energy swirling around her. Her voice, devoid of any warmth, cuts through the silence as she asks if the letter is truly from Alan. As her eyes scan the letter's contents, she asks, why did the master who saved her not want her by his side? Evan watches in sheer terror, recognizing this visible manifestation of mana as a power belonging only to the legendary Master Realm. Yusha's glowing red eyes fixate on a single phrase written in the letter, the very words Alan had used as an excuse. It's not yet time. The phrase triggers Evan's memory, reminding him of his master's mysterious expression and his command. Panicked, he quickly explains that his master was referring to timing, a desperate bluff that causes Yusha's overwhelming aura to recede. She clutches the letter to her chest, for it contains the exact same cryptic incantation used by the Archbishop, a secret promise only her true master could know. With her conviction solidified, her power flares once more, not with rage, but with unwavering, zealous devotion. Bathed in the light of the crimson moon, she embraces her destiny not as a mindless beast, but as the bloody Queen Yusa, the loyal Sin of Wrath. Meanwhile, Alan, completely oblivious to the fervent loyalty he has just inspired, settles into bed with a sigh of relief. He gazes at the moon, feeling a sense of accomplishment and already planning how he will fix the next future disaster. He falls into a peaceful sleep, unaware that he has not prevented a catastrophe but has instead gained the absolute devotion of a terrifyingly powerful zealot. A sudden crash of books shatters the library silence, startling Alan from his research. Surrounded by scattered tomes, he clutches his head in frustration, his search for the third boss proving to be a dead end. Springing to his feet as his knight Evan approaches, Alan urgently confirms that the recently rescued child was treated with the utmost kindness. Evan recalls the mission, a brilliant flash of light marking the moment he secured the child from the clutches of the slave market. Just as Evan is about to elaborate, a smug voice echoes through the library, announcing the arrival of Alan's second brother, Antonio Palacio. Tonio leans over his younger brother with a condescending sneer, mocking the illiterate fool for suddenly taking an interest in books. He then violently grabs Alan's head, demanding an answer with brutish force, forcing Alan to question how his original self ever endured such humiliation, choosing survival over pride. Alan immediately prostrates himself, offering to leave the library to his domineering brother. Pleased by this display of submission, Tonio plants his boot on Alan's back before delivering a powerful kick that sends him flying across the room. At the same time, a dagger is thrown with deadly precision, embedding itself deep into the library's wooden gate. Tonio's victory is cut short by a cold, commanding voice from the entrance, labeling the brothers as noisy insects. The eldest son, Leo Palacio, stands silhouetted in the doorway, his very presence radiating an aura of absolute authority as he orders them to get lost, while the two elder brothers are locked in a silent, murderous standoff. Alan cautiously crawls away from the escalating conflict. This confrontation serves as a harsh reminder that the Palacio brothers' power built on drugs and prostitution is far greater than he remembered from the game. He understands now that this is the heart of the family's rot, a vicious power struggle between two scummy brothers for the title of family head. On one side stands Leo, the undisputed prostitution king who holds a significant portion of the underworld in his grasp. On the other is Tonio, the ruthless drug king who manages a massive and violent drug cartel. Terrified by the realization that he is trapped between these two monsters, Alan scrambles to escape the library before he can get caught in the crossfire. As Evan helps him to his feet, Alan solidifies his strategy for survival. He must embrace the role of a weak and incompetent child to stay beneath his brother's notice. Later, as Alan lies collapsed on a sofa, Evan remarks that the child he rescued also seemed far from ordinary. The young noble stirs weakly on the couch, his act of feebleness completely convincing his knight. This leaves Evan to ponder a deep mystery. How could this seemingly pathetic master have uncovered such dangerous and widespread criminal operations on his own? Utterly drained from the encounter with his brothers, Alan can only manage a tiny complaint about his exhaustion. Evan confirms that per his master's orders, the unusual child has been sent to the newly established orphanage. Alan knows the truth. However, the boy isn't just unusual. He is a being of cataclysmic scale, a future world ender. He recalls the boy's origins, a captive from the central nation of the Kalyan Kingdom. The child he rescued was none other than Dio's Melon, the infamous second boss from the game Psychedelia. A boy who through immense suffering was fated to become the horrifying embodiment of the sin of sloth. Alan shudders, remembering the sheer cruelty of the boy's backstory, a plot point that had shocked countless players. It was Dio's most defining trait that guided Alan's actions, an unwavering principle to repay any debt or disservice, making kindness the only logical strategy. Taking a sip of tea, Alan gives Evan his now standard cryptic explanation. It is not yet time for the boy to join them. He then confirms the letter sent to Yusha was indeed about Dio's, containing a bit of small talk to mask its true purpose. The letter's core instruction was simple for Yusha to personally take care of the slightly sick child he had sent her. At the orphanage, Dio's stands isolated from the other playing children, a solitary figure shrouded in shadow. He remains alone under the moonlight, a silent testament to a spirit that has been utterly broken by tragedy. A voice cuts through his silent despair, its words sharp and clear, identifying the profound damage within him. He looks up to see Yusha, who has approached him with an unnerving, silent grace, channeling a fraction of her power. She informs him that he has been chosen by her master, the Great Moon. An incredible aura erupts from her as she commands him to feel the power he has been granted and to unleash his sealed potential. With a dangerous glint in her eyes, she extends a hand, offering him power and purpose in exchange for absolute loyalty to her master's orders. Her task now complete, she prepares to send her first formal reply back to the man she reveres. Clutching his letter, she reaffirms her decision to begin their correspondence with a light, simple greeting. Back at the Palacio estate, Alan's desperate search for information on the third boss is interrupted by Evan bursting in with urgent news. With a look of shock on his face, the knight breathlessly reports that something has happened to the second young master, Antonio. Alan looks up from his messy pile of books, completely bewildered by the sudden development. The scene reveals Tonio's fate. His lifeless body lies entangled in glowing purple threads in a dark, decrepit alleyway. An overhead view shows the somber and sparsely attended funeral of the second son of House Palacio. During the service, the supposedly grieving Count Palacio is seen shamelessly entertaining two women. Observing the disgraceful display, Alan is disgusted by a family that would bring women and drugs to their own son's funeral. Looking down at his brother's body, he knows that the official cause of death, an accidental fall, is a lie that diverges from the game's original story. He distinctly recalls the brutal game event where Leo personally murdered Tonio, celebrating his victory and ascension as the rightful heir. Seeing the triumphant smirk on Leo's face, Alan immediately deduces that his brother is the murderer, having simply expedited his plans. With his arms crossed, Alan watches his brother's corpse, contemplating the unexpected acceleration of the plot. Following Tonio's death, Leo absorbed the drug business, and a false sense of peace settled over the now undisputed territory. In the quiet days that followed, Alan and Evan enjoy a peaceful afternoon tea. During this time, Alan has established a steady correspondence with Yusha. Confident that their connection will be a valuable asset, he reads her latest letter, which details the surprisingly normal lives of the future great sins, including Dio's newfound hobby of puppeteering. Evan notes a recent sharp increase in sponsorships for the orphanage, a strange but welcome development that Alan happily accepts. The knight then presents a new report, announcing that the Information Guild has finally found a clue regarding the third boss. A spark of excitement ignites in Alan's eyes as he realizes his chance to find the next target is finally at hand. The two sit in a moment of shared quiet anticipation for the next phase of their master plan. But elsewhere, a scream of pure agony echoes through the night. Two individuals, leaders of a growing organization, report on their success to an unseen figure. Their report is delivered from a street filled with the dead bodies of their own members. One of the members screams in horror as his own hand moves against his will, plunging a sword into his comrade. The two leaders find themselves ensnared by the same power, their bodies forced into a deadly battle against each other. They can only scream in pain and terror as they inflict grievous wounds upon one another. As the slaughter continues, a cloaked figure walks away from the carnage without a single glance back. It is Dio's, his hands weaving threads of glowing purple energy. The puppet master enjoying his grim performance. His companion questions the necessity of the massacre. Seeing no logical point in the brutal display, Dio's explains that while he feels no pity for drug dealers, he fails to see how this act furthers his own goals of revenge. Her eyes glow with fervent light as she declares that this is the essential foundation to prepare the world for his return. With a zealous smile, she states that they cannot allow their master to arrive in a shabby, unprepared world. A sentiment that finally convinces Dio's. As they soar into the night sky, they are united in a single, unwavering purpose. Everything will proceed according to their master's will. 2 years have passed since the fateful correspondence with Yusha began. During that time, the Palacio estate has remained a quiet yet tense home. An exhausted figure stumbles through the grand halls, clearly drained from a long and arduous journey, bursting into the backyard. The knight Evan finally collapses before a startled Alan. Despite his fatigue, he gives a triumphant thumbs up, confirming that the fifth and final target has been safely secured at the orphanage. As a reward for his knight's incredible effort, Alan offers him a plate of macarons. It was a desperate struggle to locate the third sin of greed, a hunt that pushed Evan to his absolute limits, guided only by Alan's game knowledge. With their primary mission of gathering the children now complete, Alan tells his loyal subordinate that he has earned a long overdue rest. A wave of profound relief washes over Alan, the immense weight of his world-saving plan lifting ever so slightly. Evan, however, observes his master's stoic expression and questions if he is truly happy with their success. With a completely deadpan face, Alan insists that his current expression is in fact one of joy. Lying back in the grass, he allows himself a moment of satisfaction, amazed at how smoothly everything has progressed. He reflects on the core of his mission, knowing the bosses of Psychedelia were all forged in the fires of torment and abuse. Each of the 5 great sins was born from a tragic past, and he knew that saving them all before their fated corruption was a near impossible gamble. Yet against all odds, the 5 children who were destined to destroy the world now stand together under the safety of his protection. Lounging in the sun, Alan's peaceful afternoon is interrupted by Evan delivering the latest letter from the orphanage. The knight happily reports that the children, who were once like broken dolls, have begun to heal from their trauma. As he opens the letter, Alan notes that with the children's recovery progressing so well, they won't need to hire any outside help. He silently marvels at Yusha's natural talent for managing the other children. Attributing it to her original character's deep attachment to the orphanage setting, acknowledging her inherent kindness, he remarks that Yusha is a good kid, prompting Evan to ask if the letter contains any special news. The letter, bathed in the warm light of the sun, opens with a cheerful and reassuring update. It paints a beautiful picture of life at the orphanage, where the children are finally allowed to be children, playing freely under Yusha's watchful eye. A sense of pride fills Alan's heart as he reads about their normal, happy lives, reaffirming his belief that a nurturing environment was the key. This leads Evan to ask the logical question: when his master will finally meet the children he has worked so hard to save? To his knight's utter astonishment, Alan bluntly states that he has absolutely no intention of meeting them in person. His reasoning is rooted in fear, recalling the game's horrific flashbacks that depicted the children's already terrifying personalities. He admits to himself that even though he saved them before their awakening, the memory of what they could become is still deeply frightening. After a moment of nervous hesitation, he decides to postpone the meeting for at least 5 more years. This fear for his own safety motivates him to practice his magic. Knowing he needs some form of self-defense in this brutal world, while Alan proudly boasts about his natural talent, Evan interrupts him with a question about a mysterious group known as Blue Moon. The name is completely foreign to Alan. So Evan explains they are a new popular group of vigilantes hunting down criminal organizations. Confident that anything not from the original game is an irrelevant anomaly, Alan dismisses the group as a temporary fad that will soon disappear, but Evan shatters his confidence with a chilling update. Blue Moon doesn't just hunt criminals, they have also been killing nobles. Instantly terrified by this news, Alan immediately declares that for his own safety, his knight will now be sleeping in the room directly next to his. The scene shifts to the orphanage, now bathed in the dark of night. Here, a secret meeting is called to order to hear the weekly activity report of the vigilante group, Blue Moon. Yusa, acting as the group's leader, begins the meeting by asking for the report from the north. The sin of pride. A cat-like girl named Sailing smugly reports that her mission is complete. She proudly specifies that she has dealt with the slave traders, presenting their heads as proof of her success. She then gleefully recounts how she toyed with her victims, boasting that none could even figure out who she was before they died. Following this brutal report, the sin of greed, a quiet girl named Raikamli, adds that all the bodies were disposed of cleanly. She continues by stating that her own mission in the south has also been successfully concluded. The future sin of obsession then elaborates that their targets were the illegal human experiment labs and the remnants of the criminal organization Avalon. With his eyes glowing ominously, he confirms that their enemies were all shredded without a trace. Yusha's own eyes glow with approval as she declares that everything is proceeding according to her master's will. It is now clear that the 5 children Alan saved have become Blue Moon, a secret organization of zealous worshippers dedicated to him. Their great moon. However, Yusha announces that a problem has arisen, something she believed to be impossible under their master's perfect guidance. Dios presents a document they recovered which shockingly reveals that the head of Avalon is none other than Alan's eldest brother, Leo. The revelation that their master's own family is corrupt sends a palpable shock wave through the room. The other members can only stare in disbelief, the gravity of the discovery hanging heavy in the air. The tension is thick as they process the dangerous implications of this new information. But as User reads the document further, her rage is ignited by a single line. A direct order from Leo to assassinate Alan, which she cannot forgive. 2 years later, the inevitable finally happens and the members of the Palacio house gather for the funeral of their patriarch. The official cause of the Count's death is listed as cardiac arrest, but Alan, knowing his father's rampant drug abuse, understands the truth, and his attention is drawn to panicked whispers about Blue Moon. He overhears Leo's men reporting that their forces were ambushed and completely annihilated by the mysterious vigilante group. This stunning defeat forces Leo to finally recognize Blue Moon as a serious threat to his criminal empire. And so the funeral for a man no one mourned comes to a quiet and unceremonious end. As Alan and Evan leave the church, Leo watches their departure from a high balcony with a cold, calculating gaze. In his room, Alan begins to pack his belongings, prompting a confused Evan to ask what his plans are now that Leo is the new count. In response, Alan simply picks up a suitcase and announces that they are leaving, a decision that utterly shocks his knight. He clarifies that they aren't leaving forever but are merely relocating to the Southern Territories. Evan correctly deduces their destination is a remote village on the edge of the family's land. With their carriage waiting, Alan confirms his plan to abandon his title and live a quiet life far from the family's corruption. From his balcony, Leo watches the carriage depart. His brothers attempt to flee, not going unnoticed. A dark and unreadable expression is plastered on his face as he silently watches them disappear. The scene shifts to a sizzling pan where toast and a sunny side-up egg are being cooked to perfection. In their new humble home, Alan is attempting to cook for himself, a simple domestic act he finds surprisingly difficult. 3 days after their arrival, they have settled into a peaceful new life with Evan happily assisting his master. But this tranquility is violently shattered when Alan is summoned back to the estate for yet another funeral, this time for his brother Leo. Standing in the blood-soaked mansion once again, Alan is horrified, his mind racing to understand why the plot is changing so drastically. He approaches the casket and sees the cause of death is unmistakable. A single clean blade wound directly through his brother's heart. A chilling question forms in his mind. Who in the world could have possessed the power and audacity to murder Leo Palacio when he tries to question a nearby guard about the incident? The man screams and recoils in absolute terror. The terrified guard is quickly dragged away by a comrade babbling apologies for having dared to make eye contact with Alan. Alan is left utterly bewildered, noticing for the first time that all the funeral guests are whispering and actively avoiding him. As he walks through the hall, the crowd of nobles parts before him as if he were death itself. It is then that Evan approaches him, his face etched with a seriousness Alan has never seen before. Leaning in close, the knight whispers a question that turns Alan's world upside down. Was he the one who wiped out Avalon overnight? The accusation leaves Alan completely speechless, as the horrifying realization dawned that he is no longer seen as a weak noble but as a terrifying, shadowy mastermind. As the grand carriage departs from the blood-soaked estate, a new chapter begins for the young master. Inside, Alan sits in contemplative silence, pondering the future he has so carefully planned. A wicked smile spreads across his face as he inwardly rejects any possibility of returning, for the peaceful village of Rodmal is the final stage of his grand design. He reflects on his success, having saved the 5 future calamities from their tragic fates by altering their pasts. He is confident that he has prevented the apocalyptic future that once loomed over the world. His mind drifts to an idyllic future, a peaceful picnic where the children can grow up happy and untroubled. He envisions a quiet life in a quaint village far from the corruption and danger of his former home. It is the perfect place to finally achieve his ultimate goal, to live the sweet, leisurely life of a nobleman. Evan, however, sees through his master's facade, refusing to accept his vague and dismissive explanation for their sudden departure. Caught off guard by his knight's astuteness, Alan quickly tries to end the conversation before his true motives are exposed. Unbeknownst to them, their carriage is being watched from a high balcony. Leo Palacio stares down at his fleeing brother, a single murderous question echoing in his thoughts. He had already deemed Alan useless and had even considered poisoning him after their father's death. However, seeing his brother's pathetic attempt to run away to the frontier, he decides there's no longer a reason to kill him. He turns away with a frustrated scowl. His thoughts soured by the recent string of failures within his organization, Avalon, just as he dismisses his brother as an irrelevant nuisance, he summons his right-hand man, Alman, with a new command. The loyal assassin immediately assumes the order, asking if he is to pursue the carriage and kill the young master. Leo turns in surprise, taken aback by his subordinate's direct and unexpected question. He finds it deeply unsettling, as Alman was a man who had always followed his orders without a single word of complaint. The fact that he is now questioning a direct command sparks a flicker of suspicion in the new count's mind. That flicker of suspicion turns to shock as he feels a sharp, sudden pain in his side. An explosion of agony erupts from his chest as a blade is violently driven through his body. He looks down in horror to see the sword belongs to his most trusted man. Unable to comprehend the sudden betrayal, a cold, unfamiliar voice emanates from Alman, stating his personal enjoyment of war games. It is then that his eyes begin to glow with an unholy light, revealing the once loyal assassin to be something far more dangerous. He reveals his true allegiance, a sacred duty to protect his one true master, the Great Moon. With a single fluid motion, he rips his blade free from his former master's flesh. A final decisive slash ends Leo's life as Alman explains the condition for this betrayal has just been met. He reveals that he had waited 2 long years for Leo to give the order to harm Alan, the trigger for his secret mission. As Leo collapses, Alman declares that with this final command, the entire Avalon organization will now be erased from existence. He looks down at the corpse of his former lord, his voice devoid of emotion as he states what a pity it all is. 3 days later, in his peaceful village home, Alan wakes up with a cheerful and contented yawn. He basks in the morning sun, ready to enjoy another perfect day of his new quiet life. He and Evan share a simple breakfast of toast, a small but significant symbol of their newfound freedom. As he savors his meal, Alan muses that his cooking is so good, he could probably start his own toast business. Their peaceful morning is suddenly interrupted as Evan rushes in. Holding a newly arrived telegram, Alan takes the letter, a sense of confusion clouding his happy mood. His eyes widen in horror as he reads the message, a formal request for his immediate return following the death of Leo, abruptly ending his 3-day paradise. Back in the dreaded funeral hall, Alan stands before his brother's casket, the sole surviving heir of the Palacio family. He is immediately struck by the terrified reactions of the guests, their fearful whispers and trembling gazes leaving him utterly confused. His confusion deepens as Evan's question from before echoes in his mind, the absurd accusation that he was the mastermind behind Avalon's destruction. He and his knight sit alone in the empty hall, a heavy and awkward silence hanging between them with tears of frustration welling in his eyes. Alan begs his knight for a simple explanation as to why he has been framed as a criminal genius. Evan calmly lays out the undeniable facts. Alan's departure provided a perfect alibi, and with both his brothers dead, he is the only one who stands to gain. The sheer horrifying logic of the situation strikes Alan with the force of a physical blow, frozen in his seat. He can only listen as Evan further explains that with Avalon gone, there is no one left to challenge his claim or investigate the truth. His knight then finishes his flawless deduction with a theatrical flourish, mockingly asking if the new mastermind of the county is having a throbbing headache is Alan's only reply as he struggles to process the insane turn his life has taken. A sudden thought strikes him, and he recalls the vigilante group Blue Moon, wondering if they could be the real culprits. But Evan quickly dismisses the idea, reporting that the Information Guild has already ruled them out as suspects. He explains that Blue Moon's methods are completely different as they are known to leave a signature mark, but never any bodies. The scene of Avalon's demise, however, was described as a hellish slaughter, solidifying the rumors that Alan has a sword master-level assassin at his command. Alan knows this is impossible, as Blue Moon was a non-factor in the game, which leaves him with no other suspects and no way to clear his name. Meanwhile, at the orphanage, Yusha and her comrades are in the middle of their own debriefing. Ryan reports with an ethereal glow that no bodies were left behind from their last mission. Xiang eagerly draws her blade, a golden aura erupting around her as she chimes in. With a sadistic grin, she confirms that there were indeed many bodies that required disposal. Dios, cloaked in a regal purple aura, gives a precise number of the enemy forces they eliminated. The Sin of Obsession then steps forward, his own dark power flaring to life. He confirms that as per their boss's orders, every single one of their targets was cut in half. Yusha's eyes glow with a sinister red light as she deems their brutal mission a perfect success. In the aftermath of their assault, the once mighty Avalon organization has been reduced to nothing more than rubble and dust. But their work is not yet finished. As the Sin of Obsession reports that their cleanup is incomplete, he presents a folder containing a list of other nobles who were secretly connected to Avalon's criminal network. The document highlights the deep involvement of one of the most powerful families in the kingdom. The Alia Dutch takes the folder, her expression turning cold and determined as she processes this new information. A dark, murderous aura begins to emanate from her as she wordlessly conveys her next command. The other sins stand ready, their own powers flaring in response to their leader's silent order. With a cold and savage grin, the Sin of Obsession declares that they will take care of this next target quietly. Back at their headquarters, Yusha wraps up the debriefing, seeking final confirmation on their cover story. Ryan assures her that the Information Guild is treating the incident as completely unrelated to Blue Moon, a fact that Seolang celebrates. Dios observes as more intelligence comes in, all the guilds now sharing the same narrative. The massacre was the hellish work of a lone swordmaster. With a cold, possessive smile, Yusha gives a strict order to maintain surveillance, ensuring this version of the truth never reaches their master. Dios then clarifies to the group that their recent mission was not an official command from that person. It was an act of preemptive defense, for they are the master's sword, and a sword should not think for itself. Gazing at the moon with zealous eyes, she reminds them that as the Blue Moon, they must only move on command, for their omniscient master knows everything. This absolute conviction instills a profound fear and loyalty in the others. They must never disappoint that person. Yet despite her unwavering faith, Dios is deeply troubled by this dynamic, a bead of sweat tracing his temple. He cannot comprehend why someone as overwhelmingly powerful as Yusha would feel such intense anxiety over simply being discovered. Pushing his doubts aside for now, he clenches the report and resolves to follow her lead. Meanwhile, the person at the center of all this devotion has collapsed onto his desk, utterly defeated by paperwork. Having inherited the title of Count, he was forced to spend an entire month drowning in responsibilities, a far cry from the life of leisure he craved. He laments that while he may have gained a fearsome reputation, the biggest problem is the timeline itself. Leo's death came 6 years too early. His misery is compounded by a line of vassals, each carrying yet another mountain of documents requiring his approval. This sudden diligence from his staff is baffling. Under the previous count, they were masters of laziness and shortcuts. The truth is they are utterly terrified of their new lord, the shadowy mastermind who they believe will kill them for the slightest mistake. He correctly deduces their newfound work ethic stems from the rumors of his ruthlessness, ironically making his life even more like that of a corporate slave. In a private workshop, Evan approaches his master, who is busy with a different kind of training. The sight that greets him leaves the knight utterly speechless, a profound look of surprise etched on his face. His master, who once had no powers, is now skillfully wielding second-tier magic, a remarkable feat achieved in just 2 years of self-study. Evan notes that such a level normally takes 4 years of dedicated training and is impossible without innate talent. a fact Alan humbly accepts. In reality, he only practiced so diligently out of sheer anxiety and the desperate need for some form of self-defense. He has even mastered a technique that requires incredibly precise mana control, forming complex magical constructs from pure energy. But despite his incredible progress, he knows there is a critical, unchangeable flaw holding him back. While he had never expected to actually use magic in this fantasy world, it has become an essential tool. He believes that once his master plan is complete, he will no longer be in danger and can continue his studies at a leisurely pace. The spell immediately fizzles out, his frustration boiling over as he confronts the core of his problem. His mana hole is pathetically small. A person's mana hole is an innate trait fixed from birth, much like an athlete's physical potential determining their magical capacity. And unfortunately for Alan, his own mana capacity is quite limited, a faint energy source in a world of brilliant stars. It is so small, in fact, that no amount of training can ever overcome this fundamental and deeply frustrating weakness. Just as he despairs over his magical limitations, Evan arrives with a potential new opportunity, a formal invitation to a high society dance. He takes the invitation, a look of confusion on his face as he considers his next move. The invitation leads him to a grand ball, an opulent gathering of the kingdom's most powerful nobles. Dressed in the formal, decorated attire of a count, he steps into the lion's den. Sheer social pressure of the event already has him feeling completely drained before he has even spoken to a single person. This is a regular networking event for the nobles of the southern region, a place for forging alliances and cementing power. Realizing he must build connections as the new count, he steels his resolve, much to the confusion of his cake-wielding knight. However, the moment he and Evans step onto the main floor, the other nobles scatter in every direction as if fleeing a plague. One unfortunate man who makes accidental eye contact shrieks in terror, flinching away as if he had seen a vengeful ghost. The terrified guests practically trample one another in their haste to get away from the rumored monster in their midst. Evan awkwardly tries to console his master for the blatant social rejection, but Alan remains completely unfazed. He coolly dismisses the incident, stating with a world-weary sigh that he fully expected this kind of reaction. After all, he knows that the current reputation of House Palacio is a far cry from the glory days of his illustrious great-grandfather. To the rest of the world, he is not a respectable count, but the notorious and feared black sheep of the East. But he came prepared, ready to deploy the social skills he has been secretly practicing for this very occasion. He approaches a lone young woman, using the unique taste of the wine as a smooth opening line. As he takes a sip, he is hit by a powerful aroma. His senses completely and visibly overwhelmed by the distinctive bouquet. Remembering that a gentle smile is key to socializing, he forces a wide, menacing grin while asking where he can acquire some of the wine for himself. This gesture has the opposite of its intended effect, filling the young lady with a cold, creeping terror. She faints from sheer shock, stammering that she will prepare it for him right away, leaving Alan completely baffled by her reaction. As he stands over her unconscious body, he overhears the other nobles whispering that he is an even bigger scoundrel than his murderous brothers. In a desperate attempt to deny his catastrophic social failure, he concludes that she must simply be a uniquely shy person. Back in their designated corner, Evan presents a tray piled high with gifts, Riley congratulating his master on his increased loot. The impressive list of tributes does little to soothe his bruised ego, as his carefully studied wine knowledge proved to be worse than useless. The heavy weight of his reputation as a fratricidal maniac presses down on him, isolating him in the crowded ballroom. He has become a pariah, a person so feared that his hopes of networking are now completely and utterly shattered. Defeated, he decides to step outside for some fresh air, leaving Evan with his plate of consolation snacks. As he leaves, his departure is noted by an elegant woman with striking red hair and a matching crimson dress. Her crimson eyes follow him with a curious and calculating gaze as he walks away. Out on the balcony, Alan lets out a deep sigh, trying to clear his head under the vast, starry night sky. He stands in solitude, taking a moment for himself away from the suffocating atmosphere of the ball. A sudden, unexpected voice breaks his solitude, causing him to turn around in genuine surprise. But as he turns, he finds the balcony completely empty, the voice seemingly coming from nowhere. Confused but polite, he begins to introduce himself to the empty air. Assuming the speaker is hidden, the voice reveals its source. Introducing herself as Loria, the third daughter of the powerful Altia ducal house. The name Altia immediately triggers a flash of recognition, a name he knows all too well from his past life. He remembers them from the game. The Altia family, one of the three great villainous houses, also known as the Black Sheep of the North. He realizes with a nervous sweat that anyone brave enough to approach him now could not possibly be an ordinary person. And yet, despite the immense importance of her family in the game's lore, he has absolutely no memory of this specific girl. The girl, whose face seems completely new to him, looks at him with nervous determination and gets straight to the point. Her request is as direct as it is shocking. She asks the dreaded mastermind to lend her his strength. She then looks away with a cryptic blush, adding a strange and ominous addendum to her plea. She reveals the terrifying truth behind her desperation. She is fated to be assassinated, and he is the only one who can help her. Faced with this desperate plea, Alan listens with a calm, unreadable expression. Gloria begins her story, explaining that as the daughter of a mistress, she was only protected by her father's affection. But her voice trembles with fear as she reveals her father and protector, the Duke, is now gravely ill. This new information clicks into place for Alan, explaining why he has no memory of her from his past life. With tears in her eyes, she desperately begs the man whose rumored power represents her last hope for survival. His response is immediate and brutal, a single cold refusal that leaves the young noble utterly stunned. But he callously turns his back on her, dismissing her plea and leaving her to face her terrible fate alone. His cold rejection is a mask for his own fear. Knowing that inviting the trouble of a great house is a suicidal act for a powerless fraud like him, he walks away without looking back. But a bead of sweat on his temple betrays his inner conflict and guilt, her last glimmer of hope extinguished. Loria is left alone on the balcony, her expression one of utter despair. The immense weight of his decision suddenly hits him, and he stops in his tracks with a surge of guilt and stress. But just as he is about to re-enter the ballroom, her voice calls out, offering a strange and sincere blessing for his future. Her cryptic words follow him as he continues his lonely walk back into the crowded hall. Unseen in the shadows, a cloaked figure observes the encounter, noting that the great house of Altia has now made contact with their master. Another cloaked figure quickly intervenes, revealing that they have their own intelligence on the matter, and no action is necessary. Their information confirms that Loria is the only member of her family not entangled with Avalon's criminal activities. This purity means she is not a target for their purges, simplifying their existing command to eliminate the rest of the corrupt ducal house. Re-entering the ballroom, Alan glances over his shoulder. A distinct and unsettling feeling of being watched creeping up his spine. Feeling completely isolated, he is suddenly startled by a confident hello from the mysterious red-haired woman from before. A flicker of genuine hope ignites within him. Perhaps this is his chance to finally make a real connection with another noble. That hope is instantly replaced by dread as she steps closer, his instincts screaming that she is just as dangerous as everyone else who approaches him. He resigns himself to his fate, accepting that his fearsome reputation now ensures that no ordinary person will ever talk to him again. Her playful question confirms his suspicions. She is fully aware of her own notoriety and enjoys the power it brings. He quickly racks his brain, searching his extensive game knowledge to identify this new and dangerous variable. His memory brings forth the political landscape of the game, defined by the three great villainous houses of the Asteria Kingdom. There was the House of Altia in the frozen north, infamous for their cruelty and dark secrets. Then there was his own fallen family, House Palacio, the corrupt black sheep of the east. And finally, there were the degenerates of Zenonia, the ruthless criminal masters of the west. Her confident smile confirms her identity as she asks if her fearsome reputation precedes her. She proudly represents Zenonia, a refined corporate-style syndicate that operates with ruthless efficiency. A wave of despair washes over Alan. All he wanted were some peaceful connections, not a meeting with the head of a Western crime family. The woman gracefully accepts his silent acknowledgement as a compliment to her power and influence. With a predatory glint in her eyes, she leans in closer, offering him a private audience. Panicked, he quickly refuses, using the excuse of prying eyes while internally screaming for her to leave him alone. Her knowing smile reveals she sees through his lie but is amused by his desperate attempt to flee. Instead of forcing the issue, she simply promises that they will meet again, her tone leaving no room for argument. She turns to leave, leaving Alan utterly baffled by the brief but terrifying encounter. He is left standing alone, dumbfounded that he has managed to attract the attention of yet another major villain. From the rafters above, the members of Blue Moon report that their cover-up of the Avalon incident is secure, but a new threat has emerged. They have spotted someone tailing their master, a fact that Alan, with a weary sigh, has also just noticed. Lacking direct orders, they decide to shadow the mysterious tail, ready to eliminate them if they prove to be a threat. The scene shifts to a vast open landscape where Evan questions his master's certainty about their current path. They have arrived at a deep overgrown canyon, the very place Alan had been searching for. With a triumphant clench of his fist, Alan declares that he has finally found his true objective. They venture into a passage marked with glowing ancient runes, confirming that this is the real entrance he was seeking. Alan's internal monologue reveals the truth. The High Society Ball was merely a cover for his real mission in the south. He recalls the dungeon from his past life, the Labyrinth of Whispers, an ancient ruin that can only be cleared by solving 8 riddles. His confidence is absolute, for he still remembers the complete walkthrough from his countless hours of playing the game. They proceed through the ancient halls, the glowing runes casting an ethereal light on their path. Arriving at the main entrance, he is struck with awe. The digital dungeon from his past now a tangible and breathtaking reality. His knight's logical question about how he knows of this place forces him to give a vague and unconvincing lie. He quickly dismisses the question with a joke, but Evan's stoic expression shows that his suspicion is only growing. Suddenly, the ground trembles as a monstrous guardian of stone and rage erupts from the floor with a deafening screech. A massive stone hand rises from the depths, the labyrinth's first line of defense ready to crush any intruders. Evan observes the creature and correctly deduces that a single wrong answer to the room's riddle will result in them being smashed flat. Alan, completely unfazed by the towering golem, calmly approaches a pedestal to read the first riddle. With a steady hand, he dips a feather quill in ink, already knowing the answer from his perfect memory. Evan, however, is lost in his own thoughts, trying and failing to find any logical pattern in his master's bizarre missions over the past 4 years. Just as the golem's fist descends upon him, Alan calmly explains that the exit will only open once the guardian sequence is complete. True to his word, the creature freezes mid-attack and the massive stone door behind it begins to grind open. He admits to himself that even though he knew the brutal outcome of solving the puzzle, he still had to force himself not to look away. They step through the newly opened door, entering the final chamber in the heart of the labyrinth. Ignoring the vast riches, Alan directs his knight to a single skeletal hand. Despite Evan's confusion over retrieving a seemingly useless and oversized ring, Alan insists they leave the rest of the treasure behind. With the artifact in his hand, a look of pure triumph crosses his face. He has finally obtained the game's ultimate prize, the constraint. He confidently reassures his nervous knight that there is nothing left to fear on their way out, but his celebration is cut short by his knight's terrified voice, alerting him to a new horrifying development. As he turns, he sees the exit is now blocked by an entire army of the Stone Guardians. Without a moment's hesitation, Evan bravely steps in front of his master, determined to fight them off himself. With grim determination, he shoves his master behind him, his own survival secondary to ensuring Alan's escape. The army of Stone Guardians begins to activate, the ancient runes on their bodies glowing with a sinister red energy. As the first golem lunges forward to deliver a crushing blow, Evan braces for the inevitable impact. But at the last second, Alan steps forward, his hand outstretched as he unleashes the power of the Black Ring. The powerful entity then presents him with an impossible choice to speak two new constraints that he can enact upon the very fabric of reality. He is stunned, realizing the game's simple choice-based menu has manifested as a conversation with a real sentient god. This is the labyrinth's true reward, not the ring itself, but the divine power to rewrite the rules of the world. Clutching his family crest for courage, he feels the terrifying weight of reality. As he prepares to state his first command, the entity's command echoes through the void, its voice a universe of swirling stars and darkness. Performing a complex hand seal from a forgotten magical art, he declares that from now on all spell casting will require the hand seals of Babylonia. His goal is simple yet audacious, the power to twist the very laws of the world itself, a wish that is immediately granted, his mind reeling from the surge of cosmic power. He prepares to state his second, even more audacious constraint. He forms a new seal over his mouth and declares that all magic must now be cast using only the sacred words of the same forgotten language. When the entity asks what he seeks, he gives the same answer as before. With his second constraint spoken, a new skill icon appears before him, confirming the change has been registered by the world. The entity falls silent and a cold dread fills Alan as he waits for the verdict on his world-altering demands. He begins to panic, wondering if he has made a fatal error. Even after perfectly mimicking the skill icons from the game, sweat pours down his face. After everything he has risked, he knows that this gamble has to pay off. Then, to his immense relief, the entity's voice booms through the cosmos, accepting his new laws. A new chorus of voices emerges from the void, thanking him for remembering the mysteries of their forgotten great god and for carrying on his will. As he returns to the labyrinth, the black ring is absorbed into his hand, a physical sign that the new constraints are now a part of him. His victory is cut short as Evan screams a warning. The Stone Guardians are now infused with powerful second-tier magic. The newly empowered golems are now far stronger than before, their runes glowing with an even more intense demonic energy. The enhanced magic is too much for Evan, who is thrown back by a single devastating blow. He pours every last drop of his own mana into Sphere of Lightning, but the resulting spell remains faint and weak. He lets out a frustrated sigh, accepting that no matter how hard he tries, this is the absolute limit of his natural magical ability. With the newly empowered golem charging towards him, he knows it is time to test the true power of his new constraint. He unleashes his feeble spell, ready to witness the price that the laws of the world will demand for his impossible power. And on that cliffhanger, our recap comes to an end. I love reading different manhwa and I will keep recommending you as much as you want. Comment me some manhwa that I should read and make some videos for you. See you in the next video.